I asked ChatGPT how it would lead the new California Republic after the events of the Fallout TV show. This video contains spoilers for the Fallout TV show and Fallout New Vegas. Don't say I didn't warn you. If you're not into Fallout, but like my other history videos, stick around and I'll explain Fallout lore so this video makes sense. If you're still watching, you probably know that in the Fallout TV show, the city of Shady Sands, which is the capital of the new California Republic, gets nuked. So, I thought it would be fun to ask ChatGPT how it would save the new California Republic, or NCR for short, if it were a character in the Fallout universe. If you're new to my channel, lately I've been making lots of videos like this, where I ask AI to create a character for itself at some point in history, a year when it would be born, a backstory and family lore, and what actions it would take to accomplish the goal I give it, such as winning the Cold War, or saving the Roman Empire. I then use another instance of ChatGPT, which I call the Arbiter, to run a simulation of this new timeline. Whenever the first ChatGPT instance takes an action, I ask the Arbiter if that action will be successful and what its outcome will be, then give that information to the first ChatGPT character, and go back and forth repeatedly to simulate this new timeline. I also constantly ask the Arbiter what the new state of the world is, and what other challenges will come up for the first ChatGPT's character to deal with. So, after telling ChatGPT all about the Fallout TV show, I asked it to create a character in the Fallout universe, with the goal of saving the NCR after the destruction of Shady Sands. ChatGPT had to decide when its Fallout character be born, under what circumstances, and give itself a backstory. I almost forgot one more thing. The game Fallout New Vegas is centered on the conflict between the NCR and Caesar's Legion, who are battling for control over the Mojave wasteland, the city of New Vegas, and the Hoover Dam. This game has multiple possible endings, so I turned to the Arbiter to determine which ending would be considered canon in this timeline. The Arbiter decided that the canon ending of Fallout New Vegas will be that the city of New Vegas remains independent from the NCR and Caesar's Legion, with the oligarchic technocrat Mr. House as its ruler. Before we continue, let me briefly explain the history of the Fallout universe. Set in an alternate timeline that diverged from our own after World War II, the world of Fallout is marked by a 1950s American retro-futuristic aesthetic frozen in time. After the Soviet Union collapses, the Cold War continues between America and China, leading to resource wars over dwindling supplies of oil. Alaska eventually becomes the last place in the world that has cheap oil, which causes China to invade in 2066. America wins a subsequent Sino-American War by invading China, which then culminates in the Great War in the year 2077. In the span of a few hours, China and America fight a nuclear war that devastates the continental United States. Most people on the planet's surface died during the nuclear exchange. A few humans who survived the bombs became horribly irradiated immortal humans known as ghouls. Many other mutant creatures, either mutated by radiation or through experimentation, begin to take over the planet's surface. Super mutants, which are mutant humans created via infection by the Forced Evolutionary Virus, or FEV, a bioweapon developed before the nuclear war, also now populate the ruins of America. The city of Las Vegas is mostly spared by the atomic bombs thanks to the efforts of the billionaire Mr. House. From then on, Las Vegas became known as New Vegas. Mr. House put his body in a life support vat and connected his mind to New Vegas's technology systems, granting him a form of immortality. Despite this, Mr. House fell into a coma for several decades following the nuclear war, and the population of New Vegas were all killed in the decades of violence and anarchy that ensued. When Mr. House awoke from his coma, he used his army of walking, lunky robots known as Securitrons to invite tribes of survivors to populate his intact city. However, outside of New Vegas, most human survivors lived in underground fallout shelters known as vaults, built by the megacorporation, Vault-Tec. Most vaults were actually horribly immoral social experiments designed to test how to create the perfect society. Many influential business and political leaders in America from before the war formed a faction known as the Enclave, which considered itself a continuation of the pre-war US government. The Enclave sought to use the knowledge gained from the Vault experiments to create a new model society. However, the Enclave's ideology eventually evolved, resulting in them believing that all humans in the wasteland were subhumans, tainted by radiation, and had to be exterminated so that the Enclave could rebuild a perfect America. Nevertheless, in the decades after the bombs dropped, some of the vaults opened, and their survivors populate the wasteland. The survivors of one vault constructed the city of Shady Sands, which would go on to become the capital of a new state modeled on the democratic ideals of pre-war America, the new California Republic. The NCR organized itself as a federal republic, with an elected president and senate. On top of this, the NCR had its own currency, with an economy backed up by vast Brahmin herds. Brahmin are basically mutant cows. During the 22nd and 23rd centuries, the NCR gradually expanded across New California, accepting and forcing new communities into its federation. They fought a multitude of wars against other factions, such as the Brotherhood of Steel, which is a remnant of the pre-war US military, which had become a militaristic religious order, hell-bent on hoarding pre-war technology for itself and preventing other factions from developing advanced technology. By the late 23rd century, the NCR was made up of a number of federal states. The state of Shady, centered around the city of Shady Sands in Death Valley, which is the capital of the new California Republic. The state of Dayglow, centered around the city of Dayglow, which is the resettled ruins of San Diego. The state of the Hub, centered around the city of the Hub, just south of Shady Sands, which was founded as a center of trade sometime after the Great War. The state of the Boneyard, which were the resettled ruins of Los Angeles. The state of Maxon, which is where the Brotherhood of Steel was founded before the NCR took control of the region. And finally, the state of Redding in the north. By 2281, the NCR was fighting a war with another state over control over the Mojave Desert. Kaiser's Legion. Kaiser's Legion was founded by Edward Sallow, who named himself Kaiser, inspired by the history of ancient Rome. He impressed the local tribes of Arizona with his knowledge of military strategy, killing and enslaving every tribe that opposed him. Kaiser's slave army conquered all of Arizona before clashing with the NCR over control over the Mojave wasteland, specifically the Hoover Dam, a huge source of electric power contested by the Legion, the NCR, and the city-state of New Vegas. Kaiser's goal after conquering the Mojave was to conquer the NCR itself and become the ruler of a huge new empire that combined the best aspects of both the NCR and the Legion. The game, Fallout New Vegas, concludes with the player deciding which faction ultimately controls the Hoover Dam. As previously mentioned, the Arbiter determined that the city-state of New Vegas, under the leadership of Mr. House, a pre-war billionaire who has sustained himself for centuries in a life support chamber with his consciousness linked to the city's computers, gains control of the Hoover Dam by the year 2281. The year Shady Sands is nuked is not explicitly mentioned in the TV show, though it is implied that it occurred in 2282. Just to be sure, I had the Arbiter decide exactly when Shady Sands gets nuked, and it chose 2282. Now, let's see the character that ChatGPT created for itself in the Fallout universe. ChatGPT chose the name Grace Penelope Taylor. Grace was born in 2250 in the city of Dayglow, known as San Diego before the Great War, and capital of the state of Dayglow in the NCR. Grace was born into a family deeply involved in the political and scientific communities of Dayglow. Her father, Dr. Marcus Taylor, was a prominent scientist who specialized in radiation cleanup technologies, vital for Dayglow's recovery and growth. Her mother, Sarah Taylor, served as a local government official, dedicated to public service and the integration of Dayglow into the broader NCR political framework. Raised in an environment that valued education and civic duty, Grace was exposed early to the complexities of governance and the importance of scientific advancement in society's rebuilding efforts. She attended the University of Dayglow, where she studied political science and environmental studies, driven by a desire to combine scientific understanding with policy making. Grace's motivation stems from witnessing the ongoing challenges of her birthplace, including dealing with residual radiation, integrating refugees from less stable areas, and the constant threat of raider attacks. She sees the potential of the NCR as a beacon of hope and order, but recognizes its vulnerabilities. After completing her education, Grace joined the Dayglow government as a crisis response specialist, where she developed emergency response plans and coordinated with the NCR military to improve local defenses. Her effective management during several crises elevated her reputation as a capable leader. This eventually leads to Grace's election to the Dayglow City Council in 2278. Her leadership on environmental policy, promoting ghoul and supermutant integration, as well as advocating for increased centralization of power in the NCR, leads to her eventual election to the NCR Senate, representing Dayglow. She was only in this position for a short time, before being elected as governor of the state of Dayglow by 2282. In 2282, Shady Sands is mysteriously destroyed by a giant nuclear explosion, set off by the overseer of Vault 33. The NCR's central government is wiped out, and the entire nation falls into a state of chaos. As seen in the TV show, the Brotherhood of Steel takes advantage of the chaos by sending its forces to the ruins of the state of Shady. It is now up to Governor Taylor to save the NCR from complete destruction. Upon learning of the catastrophic destruction of Shady Sands, Governor Taylor quickly organizes a crisis council in Dayglow. Her immediate concern is the potential for a similar attack on Dayglow and other NCR member states, as well as the management of the inevitable refugee influx from the devastated capital. Grace leads the implementation of emergency protocols, including the activation of radiation shelters and medical facilities to assist both locals and incoming refugees. She also ramps up local militia readiness to defend against any opportunistic threats from raiders or aggressive factions like Kaiser's Legion. Recognizing the power vacuum and the risk of NCR disintegration, Governor Taylor then reaches out to other NCR member states, such as the Hub, Redding, the Boneyard, and Maxon, proposing a summit at Dayglow to discuss the future of the NCR and to prevent its collapse into warring factions. At this summit, Taylor advocates for a new federation-style government, where each member state has greater autonomy, but remains part of the collective defense and economic pact. Governor Taylor pitches Dayglow as a new capital for the NCR's government, leveraging its relatively intact infrastructure and her leadership as stabilizing factors. Dayglow's prominence in scientific research, especially in radiation cleanup, makes it an ideal candidate. I asked the Arbiter to then determine each NCR state's response to Governor Taylor's proposals at the Dayglow Summit. The Arbiter determined the states of Maxon, Boneyard, Reading, and the Hub all agree to join this reformed NCR with Dayglow as its capital. The city of New Reno, which was previously aligned with the NCR and was also invited to the summit, refuses to join this new federation, opting to maintain their independence. As part of this agreement, Governor Taylor takes over as interim president for 5 years, with broad emergency powers granted to her with the goal of restoring the NCR so that new elections can be held in 2287. President Taylor's first action is to set up a special investigative team to uncover the truth behind why Shady Sands was nuked. She deploys NCR forces to restore order in the now destroyed state of Shady. Under President Taylor's supervision, the NCR military builds refugee camps and new infrastructure to clean up debris and radiation from the nuclear blast. President Taylor soon faces her first major foreign policy crisis, as Caesar's Legion takes advantage of the NCR's disarray to begin a huge campaign of military conquest. The Legion plunders several towns deep into NCR territory, captures NCR bases in the Mojave Desert, and besieges the Hoover Dam, threatening the electrical supply of New Vegas. Mr. House, the ruler of New Vegas, realizes that his city-state's army of Securitron robots is no match for the Legion, which has now considerably grown in strength and numbers after the raids into the NCR. He proposes an alliance with the NCR, requesting new Californian troops be sent to expel the Legion from the Mojave. At the same time, the Brotherhood of Steel, led by Elder Maxon, deploys its forces to scavenge the ruins of Shady Sands and the surrounding state. They clash with NCR patrols on multiple occasions, preventing the NCR from regaining full control over the state of Shady. President Taylor decides that preventing Caesar's Legion from gaining control over the vast electricity supply at Hoover Dam is far more important than maintaining control over the ruins of Shady. She agrees to Mr. House's alliance offer, deploying a large number of NCR forces in the Mojave to fight the Legion. Taylor then seeks a diplomatic approach with Elder Maxon, proposing that the NCR and Brotherhood work together to ensure order in the ruins of Shady, and that they collaborate on research and defense initiatives. The Brotherhood accepts this offer, ending their conflict with the NCR. The Arbiter then determined that a key factor in the war between the NCR and the Legion would be the leaders of both sides' forces. The Arbiter decided that the NCR army in the Mojave would be led by a legendary general, a ghoul named Marcus Sallow. Marcus was a distant ancestor of Caesar himself and had served in the US military during the Sino-American War. The nuclear bombs turned him into a ghoul, but he persevered, partaking in nearly every armed conflict in post-war California. He fought in past battles against super mutants, the Enclave, and the Brotherhood of Steel, serving the NCR's army from the very moment it was founded. Despite bearing witness to uncountable horrors and the harsh, unforgiving nature of the wasteland, Marcus never stopped believing the democratic ideals that the NCR embodied. With nearly unlimited support from President Taylor, Marcus reestablishes the NCR's supply lines to the Mojave, particularly by building outposts in the Divide. This allows the Ghoul General to sustain his years-long campaign against Caesar's Legion. Coordinating with Mr. House's army of Securitron robots, NCR forces under General Marcus Sallow managed to break the Legion's siege of Hoover Dam in a costly battle. Despite this victory, the Legion is far from a spent force and continues to both raid NCR towns and maintain significant territorial control over the Mojave Desert. They begin to fight a war of attrition against the NCR. Marcus then receives major reinforcements in the form of an airship from the Brotherhood of Steel. President Taylor offered to provide even more logistical support and supplies to the Brotherhood, including land to establish military bases and permission to recruit NCR citizens if they came to the NCR's aid in the war against the Legion. General Marcus, now leading the combined Brotherhood NCR army, manages to not only defeat Caesar's Legion in several more battles, but by 2284, also assassinates key leaders of the Legion, such as Caesar and his second-in-command, Linnaeus. The Legion's slave army now experiences a leadership crisis and fractures. This allows the NCR and its allies to then sweep through the rest of the Mojave. For now, President Taylor honors the Republic's agreement with New Vegas, allowing the city to remain independent, but as an ally of the NCR. The Hoover Dam is reconfigured to begin sending most of its electricity to the NCR, while enough is diverted to New Vegas to fully power the city. While this war is ongoing, President Taylor endures several other challenges throughout her first term. In 2282, the governor of Maxon, a woman named Elise Kingston, began vocalizing secessionist ideas, citing the need for local governance. Meanwhile, a soldier in Maxon named Colonel Rook begins openly criticizing what he claims is President Taylor's weak response to the ongoing crisis, claiming that only a military-led government can rescue the NCR from destruction. President Taylor responds to these concerns by further reforming the NCR. She pushes through reforms to decentralize the NCR, offering states greater local autonomy within the NCR's federal system. She also specifically creates a national education policy, allowing states to mostly control their own educational systems so long as they follow federal guidelines, and promoted loyalty to the NCR. At the same time, Taylor increases federal investments into Maxon in order to highlight the value of the federal government and further dispel secessionist ideas. Taylor addresses Colonel Rook's concerns by establishing military-led crisis response committees in each NCR state and appointing Colonel Rook to oversee them. In 2284, Colonel Rook proves himself as a valuable leader in this position, as his forces kill Vulpes and Colta, a soldier of Caesar's legion who had been raiding NCR towns during the war. In 2285, the war in Mojave comes to an end, as NCR forces invade the remnants of Caesar's legion in Arizona. They conquer and incorporate the region into the Republic. President Taylor appoints General Marcus as the governor of the Arizona Provisional Authority, which governs the legion's former territories in preparation for their accession to statehood. He fights a large guerrilla war against local tribes and legion units that refuse to accept the NCR's authority, but they hardly pose a threat to the Republic. With the legion threat finally over, President Taylor can focus on other issues plaguing the new California Republic. She invests state funds into a refugee resettlement program. This results in many refugees from Shady settling in Dayglow and the Hub. By using the resettlement program to push most of the refugees to Dayglow, President Taylor hopes to further position Dayglow as a new center of the NCR. In 2286, a major epidemic occurs in the northern NCR, particularly in the settlement of Reddit. President Taylor responds by forming a national pandemic task force and using her emergency powers to allocate huge funds towards investments into the NCR's healthcare system. She commissions the creation of dozens of new hospitals across the NCR and even institutes a universal healthcare system. Federal hospitals are trained to ensure they can take care of all types of patients, whether they be regular humans, ghouls, or super mutants. President Taylor also spends this year preparing the NCR for federal elections in 2287. She changes the structure of the federal system, codifying the NCR Congress as a unicameral legislature with seats apportioned in each state based on their population. This unicameral legislature takes the form of the NCR Senate. Since Dayglow now has the highest population due to its integration of Shady Sands refugees, this allows President Taylor's party to win a majority in the Senate in the 2287 elections. The Senate then elects Taylor to a second 5-year term as president of the new California Republic. After President Taylor's first term ends, so does her broad emergency powers, meaning in her second term, her actions are now constrained by the NCR Constitution. President Taylor's main political rival, Senator Jonathan Hale from the Hub, despises the NCR's alliance with the Brotherhood of Steel and wants federal funding put into technological research to counter them. Hale allies with the senators of Maxon, who are incensed by the population apportionment of the Senate, believing that by not giving each state equal representation in the Senate, President Taylor was going back on her earlier promise to promote local autonomy. President Taylor decides to neutralize this political threat by appointing Senator Hale to her cabinet and agreeing to his demand to end the alliance with the Brotherhood. Intermittent conflict between Brotherhood and NCR forces then once again break out throughout the ruins of the state of Shady. NCR forces storm and destroy their Brotherhood military bases they previously allowed to be built on NCR territory. In 2289, President Taylor deploys additional NCR forces to Mojave and around New Vegas to crack down on criminal raider groups that are stealing water from NCR-lined towns. More outposts are set up around New Vegas in order to ensure NCR forces can keep the peace. New Vegas soon finds itself completely surrounded by the NCR, with its main source of power, the Hoover Dam, also under the NCR's control. In 2290, after an NCR citizen is murdered by a criminal based in New Vegas, President Taylor threatens to cut off the city's power unless they join the NCR as a new state. Mr. House has no good options and gives in. In 2291, President Taylor formally ends a state of military rule that has existed in Arizona for several years. The Arizona Provisional Authority is disbanded, and the state of Arizona is accepted into the NCR. Years ago, at the start of her first term, President Taylor had created a special task force to investigate the nuking of Shady Sands. After a 10-year investigation, in 2292, the task force finally reveals to the president that the overseer of Vault 33 was behind the catastrophe. In response, President Taylor authorizes NCR Special Forces to invade Vault 33. They break into the vault and arrest the overseer, a man named Hank McLean. Hank is put on trial and imprisoned. This happens towards the end of President Taylor's second term. She decides to step down from office and not seek a third term. The NCR holds a successful new election, with Colonel Rook elected as a senator, buoyed into a political career thanks to his fame for having killed Volpes and Colta. The Senate then elects Rook to the presidency, who subsequently promises to significantly expand the size of the NCR military and finally crush the Brotherhood of Steel. Grace Taylor retires from national politics, but continues to be involved at the local level in the Dago City Council. Despite President Rook's jingoistic and hyper-militaristic attitude, she feels confident that her presidency successfully guided the NCR through its darkest times, allowing the Republic's democratic ideals to survive, thrive, and prosper for decades in the future.